All right, thank you for joining us here on ABC24 Plus. I'm Chief Meteorologist Trevor Burchett alongside meteorologist Kit Thomas, tracking some severe weather this evening with some thunderstorms that have popped up. It's been a while since we've had some rain like this. I know a lot of us are hoping for the rain, maybe not necessarily the high wind gusts, but we are seeing that in some storms right now. Let's get right over to the radar. We'll show you what's going on. We have a severe thunderstorm warning. This has been issued for Marshall County, Tippah County, Benton County, southern Fayette County, and southern Hardeman County. Let's see if we can get an expiration time on that. But again, you see that big cluster of thunderstorms there, pretty much right over Holly Springs. We started to get an indication of some high wind gusts in there just as that storm passed over Holly Springs. And you see this is going to go until 4:15, and it does include Holly Springs and Ashland. Really, to be honest with you, it seems like the worst of the wind has already come through Holly Springs, and really the next thing we're probably going to be watching is as this storm rolls in toward Ashland and into Benton and Tippah counties. So an early heads up for you there. I do want to see how fast this thing is moving. These storms have been pretty slow so far today, and that has definitely produced some flooding concerns. We had some very heavy rain earlier in parts of the city of Memphis. That led to a little bit of flash flooding on those roadways, but of course, as much as we need the rain, serious flooding not likely to be a massive concern for us. So again, the severe thunderstorm warning for this storm right over Holly Springs. Again, really the worst of it, probably a little further to the east of Holly Springs now, moving to the north and east into Benton County. Heavy rain, high wind gusts likely. Could even be a little bit of small hail in there. This is moving off at about 30 miles an hour. So what we'll do here is track this over the next hour. That's going to put it near Snow Lake Shores about at 3:36. 3:43 into Ashland. So you've got a little bit over 10 minutes if you're in Ashland for the worst of the heavy rain and high wind gusts. If this holds together, we'll see if it does. I think it's got enough energy to do it at least for the next little bit. Walnut and Middleton by about 4:15, 4:20, 4:25. But definitely the next city in line for this high wind, heavy rain, that's going to be Ashland. And again, that's right at about 3:43. So we're going to keep an eye on this as it moves off toward the east. Let's switch over to our wind mode because we did have a pretty good indication earlier of some very high wind gusts, and I just want to see if it's still looking the same as it did. And yes, very, very bright pink colors in here, and that is where we're seeing the highest wind. So it's now pushing into Benton County, and you'll forgive us, this data has been kind of in and out a little bit today, but I do think this is the best view of the wind that we have. So we'll give it just a little bit and see if that radar will spin back around and give us a little extra information. I'll bump it back just a little bit until we do. But coming up to Highway 4, really anywhere in Benton County, very high wind gusts. We're talking about 50, maybe 60 mile an hour winds inside of this thunderstorm. And again, that's pushing off to the north and east. So Ashland, you're going to be the next one in line. We did have a report earlier. Power lines down Highway 7 north at Highway 311. That's in Marshall County. And we actually started to get reports back to the south and west of Holly Springs of some very high wind and maybe even some trees down. So yes, that was the report we got initially from the emergency managers there, that a tree was down on Highway 7 south in Marshall County, and a car then ran into the tree once it fell down. So kind of one of those situations, you got to be really careful in storms like this, because any kind of damage like that can certainly happen. But again, that report of the tree down was Old Highway 7 South in Marshall County. And then shortly after that, we had that report of power lines down Highway 7 north at Highway 311. So that's probably going to be just to the south of Holly Springs, or maybe even right into Holly Springs, where we got that report of the highest wind gusts. This wind is still kicking here. So Ashland, you're kind of the next one in line. Just hunker down, stay away from windows. Probably don't want to be driving around as this storm pushes in here. But definitely a pretty serious signature of high wind gusts coming through Benton County. And again, if it holds together, Walnut and Middleton, we'd have to watch as well. Let me go back to the regular radar. We've been talking a lot about the wind mode, but as we switch back to the radar, you can see that cell there. Very bright colors indicating heavy rain, possibly some hail, and that leading edge of the cell just about to cross into Ashland here in just the next 5 or 6 minutes. So an early heads up for you there in Ashland. I do want to zoom out just a little bit before we send things back over to meteorologist Kit Thomas for his take on things. This is really the worst cell we have right now. East Arkansas has really cleared out after some torrential rain this morning. We had some spots back here that saw 3 to 4 inches of rain just in a few hours back near Forest City. So that has cleared out. Most of West Tennessee just seeing some lighter showers, and then there are some heavier showers now down south of Oxford, but that at the moment is not severe. The only severe thunderstorm warning we have is with that cell that's just about to come into Ashland, Mississippi. And Kit, the National Weather Service, has some new information on that as well.
Yeah, what they're saying right now is that there is a bit more of a outflow dominant system. So this is where it's basically exhaling as it's pushing forward. All of those strong winds are escaping from out underneath that. So the damaging winds are now on the leading edge of this storm. I was looking at the hail. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But just switching back over to radar here, we've got these thunderstorms here. You can kind of see that forward leading edge of that storm just about to cross over the Highway 4 area there around the Ashland region. I'll draw that on if I can grab my draw tool here. You can see how it's sort of bowing forward like that. That usually means that we've got some pretty strong winds on the backside of that storm that's pushing it forward there as well. So that can usually lead to those storms sort of expanding forward like that. So with outflow dominant, that means that this leading edge is probably the gust of winds is actually leading the rain. So it's not quite showing up well on radar here. Let me just back that up one last frame. So you can sort of see there's a little bit of that sort of extra distance ahead where we may already be feeling that wind around the Ashland area before the rain actually starts. Now at this point it doesn't look like it's quite showing up on the velocity. If I just switch over to the velocity here, we'll go back to that last frame that we had of good clean radar data there. You can kind of see how it's already reaching the Ashland area on down the highway just south of there. So it's already starting to push forward there. Now, whenever this happens, it actually does begin to weaken the storm. If it's no longer within the rain shaft, that wind is escaping and it's exhaling pretty strongly. That can lead to some pretty strong damage, but it also leads to a weakening of the storm. So hopefully that does begin to be the case here over the next little bit. So you can see some of the latest radar scans. There are some of these hot pixels in here in this very hot pink color showing up 56 miles per hour. That's just technically sub-severe, but that's also elevated off of the surface. So we could be seeing some of those winds actually accelerating as they smash into the ground. Because whenever we're looking at radar, it actually goes above the ground, and that's the momentum, 45 to 55 miles per hour. Then as that hits the ground, it can spread out, and as it does that spreading, it can accelerate and get above the severe threshold, which is technically 58 miles per hour, warned at 60. So that's what we're looking at with this side. There's also the chance for nickel-sized hail, which is sub-severe, but as I mentioned, we were looking at some of the hail tracks on that storm just a little while ago, and really not a ton of hail within the storm. All of this has been fairly small. If we just investigate this here, hail size showing up less than a ½ inch, so not terribly large hail. That's good. This is primarily a wind threat as well. The other side of the wind, sometimes we worry about rotating winds. We really haven't seen any rotation with this. This is all just straight line, so tornado is not a component with this storm, and just the environment in general isn't really favorable for tornadoes to come together today. So keeping a close eye on all of these different factors here. This is actually the radar site that's from the terminal Doppler that's down in DeSoto County. Sometimes we'll use the one up towards Millington, but this one gives a better shot of it. As you see, we've got sort of this perpendicular flow to the radar beam as that arm is swinging around there. The winds just don't really line up very well with it since they're going east. This radar is seeing it at an angle versus the one down towards DeSoto County is seeing it at a better angle and gets a better view of the direction of those winds. But it also updates every minute, so we have some gaps in data every now and then. So we apologize for that, but you can see very clearly, like I was saying earlier, that bowing structure of those winds pushing forward. They're already through the Ashland area, so it's probably getting a little noisy around the Ashland region. And you're going to still see those winds, again, 40 up to 60 miles per hour possibly. Let's send things back over to Chief Meteorologist Trevor Burchett.
Yeah, Kit, and another component to this, the heavy rain that we were talking about. We certainly need the rain. We will take it, but it has been coming down quite a bit here over the last 24 hours. Now, we did have a little rain yesterday evening, about 7 or 8 o'clock. More rain now creeping in this morning, and again, that has been really heavy. We've been watching a strip here right along in north end of Interstate 40 in eastern Arkansas. That's where we really had some very heavy rain this morning. There were actually parts of Woodruff County, Arkansas, radar estimating over 6 inches of rain there. And then through Cross County, St. Francis County, and especially into Crittenden County, that stripe in there is where we're seeing radar estimating over 3 inches, even approaching 4 inches of rain so far today. Now, the rain has stopped in these areas. You see there 3.5, a little more than that estimated of rain so far in the last 24 hours in parts of Crittenden County near Jeanette, Arkansas. But that rain has stopped here, and now we are seeing it into North Mississippi. Now, really over the next several days, we're going to have several rounds of rain, maybe some thunderstorms. A few more of them could be a little bit stronger, like what we're seeing down in Benton County right now. Main concern is going to continue to be the high wind gusts, maybe a little hail in the strongest thunderstorms. But that's what we're seeing with that storm right now near Holly Springs. And again, it just blew through Holly Springs, now coming into Ashland. We did get some reports earlier of a little bit of minor damage that included power lines down and also a tree that fell down just south of Holly Springs, and then a car actually ran into the tree once it was in the road. So this is a situation with these strong thunderstorms. You know, you got to pay attention and be careful, but definitely a mighty storm here starting to clear up in Marshall County. The worst of it is leaving Marshall County. This is now more of a Benton County issue, and those very high winds just hitting Ashland. We could see winds in here easily over 50 miles an hour, which is enough to definitely blow things around. If this holds together, Walnut and Middleton are going to be next. Northern Tippah County, southern Hardeman County. So I do want to give you that early heads up if you need to get a car in the garage or anything like that. We do have very high winds within this thunderstorm, and at least for right now, we're not seeing major indications of any weakening. Now, what Kit was talking about is this storm is becoming a little bit more outflow dominant, which means the winds from the storm are kind of running ahead of the storm. That's a lot of times, like when you get the wind before it actually starts storming. That's what's going to happen here, and that can actually help to weaken the storm. It doesn't have enough warm air to grow with. So those winds coming through Ashland right now, we will see how long it takes before this storm starts to weaken a little bit, but I would prepare. If you're in Walnut or along Highway 15 near Highway 72, these high winds are going to be coming in your direction. They're over Ashland right now, moving to the north and east at about 30 miles an hour. And again, that's why we have this severe thunderstorm warning, because this storm is really producing some very high wind gusts throughout Benton County. Elsewhere in Hardeman County, there are some cells up here, some heavier rain, just nothing as severe as what we're seeing here in Benton County. I want to track this out one more time, just if you are watching and again need to get anything put together for these gusty winds. That's going to be near Brody at 349, Walnut, Mississippi. If this storm holds together that long, it'll be near Walnut by about 411, Faulkner at 412, Pocahontas, Tennessee at 422, Lone Pine at 432, and Cypress at 436. That's putting it a little bit further into Alcorn County as well. So that's just an early heads up over about the next hour of where this storm is going and where we're going to have that potential for the highest of wind gusts. Again, this is the only thunderstorm warning that we have right now, and I'll just kind of zoom out and show you the whole radar. Things are actually quieting down in other parts of the Mid-South. We had heavy rain all morning just about in Memphis, or at least for several hours, and things are starting to clear up there. As we look live from Midtown Memphis, you can see that the sun is even starting to come out just a little bit behind those storms that rolled through Memphis earlier. Same situation in places like Cordova. Beautiful view there at Hope Church. You see on the ground, though, where it did rain, some water still down in the parking lot. But now that that storm has passed, things are going to be looking a little bit better in Memphis. Now, that's not the case in North Mississippi right now, where we still have that thunderstorm hanging on. And the National Weather Service continuing to see what we were seeing is that we are indicating very high wind gusts near Ashland, Mississippi, coming toward Walnut in the next little bit. Oxford, it's a little stormy down there as well. We do not have any severe weather reports near Oxford right now, but definitely some heavy rain. Could be some gusty wind as well. I'll check out the camera from the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters. This is their Oxford camera. You can see those darkening skies in Oxford right now. Not sure exactly which direction this is pointing. Likely to the south, if I had to guess. That's where the heaviest rain is now, just south of Oxford. But definitely a heavy storm there, just nothing that's quite as strong as what we're seeing to the north in Benton County. And that's where we've seen those wind gusts 50, maybe 60 miles an hour, and even some small hail. But I did at least want to check in on Oxford again. Thank you to our friends over at the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters for sharing this camera with us. But you could definitely see darkening skies in Oxford with that little thunderstorm that they've got going on down there. We'll check that one out on radar just to say that we did and see what's going on. Wouldn't be surprised to see a little hail there just south of Oxford on Highway 7, right there at the split on 7 south of Oxford. That's the heaviest part of that storm. That's going to be crossing 278 just to the east of Oxford. So if you're traveling between Oxford and Tupelo right now, I would probably stay put because the potential is there for that storm to cross 278. Could be producing a little bit of hail as well. Wouldn't imagine it's huge hail, but a couple of pellets of hail, not completely out of the question. You see radar definitely pulling in on that bullseye just south of Oxford of a little bit of hail there. Heading back to the north, though, and watching this storm, still waiting for a sign of it to weaken, but Ashland, Mississippi, likely getting the worst of it right now. Heavy rain, thunder and lightning, and some very high wind with that as well. We've been seeing radar estimating these winds at 50 to 60 miles an hour, and now it's coming into Tippah County. Doesn't show any signs of weakening yet. Right along the leading edge of that storm, kind of riding right along 370, Faulkner, Mississippi, north of Ripley, up toward Walnut and Middleton. That's where the meatiest part of this storm is going to be, where the high wind gusts are, right on the leading edge of that. There's Friendship Road, and then that's the Benton and Tippah County line. That thicker black line there is the county line. So this is really close to crossing into Tippah County. So Faulkner, Walnut, up to Middleton, those areas, even into Hardeman County, this storm is going to be headed off to your north and east in the next little bit. Let's see if we're getting any better radar data in. We had struggled with this just a little bit, that data not being very reliable. But now we're looking at the winds inside the storm. You can see those bright pink colors. That is definitely where the strongest winds are. And again, that is going to be likely passing through Ashland, probably just east of Ashland right now. And that's what that severe thunderstorm warning is for. We'll estimate some of these winds in here, and then we'll throw things back over to Kit just to see what he's thinking. But again, Kit mentioned this earlier. Technically, the radar showing just below severe limits, right about 50 miles an hour, which can still do damage. But technically, to have a severe thunderstorm warning, the winds have to hit 58 miles an hour. So that's why we decided to hop on for you right now. Even though these winds might not be at the severe limit, they can still do some damage. And we've already seen that in Marshall County with those power lines blowing around just a little bit. And again, that tree that fell over on the roadway. I'm going to get an update on those reports really quick just to fill you in on where that was. Tree and power lines down. The tree was down on Old Highway 7 South. The power lines were down on Highway 7 North at Highway 311, and that was back in Marshall County as that storm was rolling through there. Going back to the radar mode, again, starting to, the highest winds are probably just past Ashland now. Still very heavy rain in Ashland and back to Snow Lake Shores on 4, but the highest wind is going to be just to the east of Ashland now and riding up 370. There's Blackjack Road, and again, this is all going into Tippah County, Mississippi, and that's what that severe thunderstorm warning is for. Marshall County has been dropped from the severe thunderstorm warning, but until 4:15, northern Benton, Tippah, and even a small sliver of Hardeman County included in this severe thunderstorm warning. Kit, definitely a storm producing some high wind gusts there in North Mississippi.
Yeah, it's been one that we've been keeping an eye on. This actually came together from 3 separate isolated.
I think your mic might still be on mute. I want to double check that. There you go.
I was typing earlier.
There you go.
So we saw this initially as 3 separate cells that all kind of clustered together, and then that's what they came together to sort of combine their updrafts, become a little more strong out there.
Yeah, definitely a strong one there. And again, Ashland, Walnut, Middleton, very heavy rain, very high wind gusts there. And Kit, if you want to talk about that for just a little bit, maybe track that out. Again, Middleton not in the warning, but definitely headed up in that direction.
Yeah, it's definitely going that way as we're starting to see that storm sort of having some leading convection into southern parts there, south from the Bolivar area into around the Middleton area and Grand Junction as well. So we've seen that area. Again, this is just on the edge, if not outside of the warning, but it's still an area we could see some strong winds or possibly some very heavy rainfall. Of course, Trevor was mentioning the fact that we've had a lot of dry conditions lately, and now we're getting a bunch of rain on top of that. That actually compacts the soil, and then it starts to flood on top of that very compacted soil. So we can't really absorb it very quickly. So there might be some isolated flooding, particularly on the roadways, but also in some other areas as well. But looking forward, you see how it's moving to the east-northeast pretty quickly. So let's get a track on that as it's headed forward here towards the Walnut area. So that's, again, until 4:15. It's moving around, I think it said 30 miles an hour. Trying to find it within the text of the severe thunderstorm warning here. Yeah, 30 miles per hour. So we'll clear that off and we'll add on just a quick velocity or a motion vector here of this leading edge. So again, that leading edge out ahead of that is where we're probably going to see those thunderstorm winds getting into your area. But we're looking at around the Brody area around 3:54. So the next couple of minutes is almost on your doorstep here. Faulkner, we're looking at you getting that wind around 4:05 to 4:10 or so, eventually getting to Walnut around 4:10 to 4:15. The Brownfield area right around 4:15. And around Essery Springs a little later than that, probably after this warning has been allowed to expire, but we may see it reissued if necessary. I also want to take you into sort of a horizontal slice or a vertical slice of this storm, as it's not a very tall storm. So it's limited with how much energy it has in the environment right now, and it's limited with what amount of wind or hail it can produce. Because one of the things we need in normal springtime severe weather, you need a very tall thunderstorm to develop that large hail and for those winds to eventually fall and grab sort of that downward acceleration as the winds are just falling downward. That's how we get the big severe winds. We're just not really seeing that with this height. It's only around 25 to 30,000 feet in height, and it's actually been going down over the last several scans. If we just back this up over the last few minutes here, you can see some parts of the storm were pretty consistently up around 30,000 feet or so, but most of the storm now, if we just zip it back to a current frame, it'll take it a minute to load, we just don't really see quite as much reaching up to that 30,000 foot mark. And what I'm looking at is mainly these yellows. That's where we're developing a lot more of the rain. The green shades, that's really on the fringe where it's not really developing the rain very quickly. So it's not going to be producing as much of a downdraft for those wind speeds. So keeping a close eye on that. Of course, still looking at the terminal radar here from the DeSoto County radar site. It's just getting on the very edge of how far out this radar site sees, so it's not going to quite get into the Tippah County area there, but we do still see those strong winds have just passed through the Ashland area. Ashland is probably going to start to ease back in your region, but now that's headed over towards the Walnut, Faulkner, Ripley area, probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. So all of that to say, it's not a terribly strong storm, but it can still be a bad storm for you. So you always want to be prepared and be ready to take shelter in the event that it does get to your area and could possibly knock down a tree or knock down an old branch that you've been meaning to trim. You haven't gotten around to it. It's one of those summer projects I feel. The same thing happens around my house as well. But overall, most of the area is relatively quiet. We don't have anything here across the Memphis area. If I just switch that back over to the radar, we've cleared out all of our rain. Like Trevor was mentioning, there is still some heavy rainfall down towards the Oxford area with decent amount of lightning in that region. There's some lightning in between the storms as well, where we've got just some light rainfall there in southern Marshall County. It's light rain. You might not think is much cause for lightning and thunder, but it is still that environment where we're producing some lightning and thunder around the area. And then all the way out to McNairy County as well. We've got several thunderstorms in that direction. I'm going to send things back over to meteorologist Trevor Burchett, though. He's been also keeping an eye on things from the National Weather Service, other reports. Are there any new reports of damage from these storms?
No reports yet. You know, it kind of jumped through a little bit more of a rural area between Holly Springs and Ashland. Fewer people means fewer reports, but now that it's gotten into Ashland, we'll see if we get any phone calls or reports about damage there. We did have some reports near Holly Springs. Now, this batch of storms is kind of what's been pushing through all morning. It does look like things are clearing out behind it, but interesting to note, there was one model that showed a little cell on the back edge of this, and it seems like that's going to verify because you can actually see it developing right back here. That is back in Arkansas County, Arkansas, or at least close to that. And we're going to watch because what that model did is it took that one little cell right through Memphis at about 7 o'clock. And those isolated cells, like we've seen today, can produce some gusty wind and maybe even some hail as well. So we'll see what this thing does. I did think it was interesting that a model showed it, and it seems like the radar is showing kind of what the model had predicted. That means we can trust that model. And again, what that model did was it took that cell and brought it in toward Memphis about 7 o'clock. So I want to give you an early heads up. I think we're dry in Memphis for several more hours, but if your ride home takes you home around 7:30, 8 o'clock or so, we could be seeing some of that cell getting into Memphis. And I'll just track it out here just to say that we did and kind of get an estimate of what time that thing might be here again. If it's moving at about 30 miles an hour, that would put it in Marville, Arkansas at 4:49, Marianna at 5:17, Tunica at 6 o'clock, and then closer to Memphis right about 7. So again, almost exactly what that model was showing. And again, who's to say if this storm is going to hold together all that way? The only reason I'm telling you this is because the models are indicating that it will. So I want to give you that timing for that one little storm. Again, nothing severe with that one right now, but could be producing some heavy rain and high wind gusts. And again, that would be in Memphis right about 7 o'clock if that holds together. Nothing severe on that, but again, what we are watching is this severe thunderstorm warning here just to the east of Holly Springs. The storm came through Holly Springs a little bit ago, now over Ashland, and now coming into Walnut and Middleton. It's actually starting to get out of that severe thunderstorm warning box just a little bit. So we'll see if the National Weather Service wants to extend this warning anymore. But I would go ahead and say northern Tippah County, southern Hardeman County, looks like that storm could produce some high wind gusts and again, the potential for some hail in there as well. I do think the wind is going to be the biggest concern. Also watching this cell just south and east of Oxford, we have our friends at the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters that are on that cell right now. They're keeping an eye on it, making sure nothing crazy is happening, but definitely a potential of some hail there. Again, there's the 7 split, so just east of that and about to come up on Highway 278. This is, again, south and east of Oxford. We're definitely seeing rain in Oxford right now, but the strongest part of that storm is going to miss Oxford to the east. Heavy rain, high wind gust, and again, maybe some hail there. We'll go back to the Oxford camera just to see if they've moved that around a little bit and maybe pointed it back into the thunderstorm. And again, this is all coming from our friends at the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. We're kind of on the back edge of that cell now. Not going to give us a great view, but you definitely see the darkening sky and the heavy rain in Oxford as that thunderstorm is pushing pretty close by to that location. So we'll zoom in here just a little bit. And again, this is right off of 334, probably going to cross 278. And again, we're tracking here high wind gusts and hail going to cross over Highway 278, County Road 277, County Road 421, kind of in that zone. That's where the heaviest part of this storm is going to track before it gets out of our area in about the next 20 to 30 minutes. But I do want to give you that heads up. If you're down in Oxford, you're probably hearing that thunder. That storm is going to miss Oxford, the heaviest part of it. But if you're east of Oxford in Lafayette County, just be aware, heavy rain, high wind gusts, definitely possible with that thunderstorm. We're going to stay on just for a couple more minutes here. And again, we don't have any tornado warnings or anything crazy like that, but I did just want to pop on for just a little bit and at least let you know we're keeping an eye on this situation. As Kit mentioned, we've also got a little cell developing there in northern McNairy County, just to the north of Selmer. Gusty wind, maybe a little hail with that. The only one that technically has a warning is that one in Benton County coming into Tippah County. Could be some high wind gusts with that. And then that little cell down near Oxford also packing quite a bit of a punch with some gusty wind and hail. Memphis and other areas, they are mostly dry right now. Again, we're going to watch this little cell back here. That's very interesting to me because that is another one that could produce some gusty wind and maybe some hail. And if that holds together, it would be coming into Memphis right about 7 o'clock. So really for the next several days, we're going to have this potential of heavy rain. We're going to have that potential of high wind gusts and maybe some small hail in some of these thunderstorms that will develop. So for today, tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, just be aware any of these storms that do develop, they could pack a little bit more of a punch here. So we're going to keep an eye on this radar just for the next little bit. Our next newscast is going to start at 5 p.m. So we will be back here with you then. And of course, if the situation warrants, we're going to be back with you as soon as we can to give you that updated information. And we'll check in one more time with meteorologist Kit Thomas. He'll time things out for you. Like we talked about, the potential is there for some more thunderstorms to develop as we go further into the afternoon, Kit.
Yeah, we're looking at that model that Trevor was just mentioning. Of course, we've got that potential for more storms over the next couple of days, as well as just the next few hours here. Just like you mentioned, that one storm that's out there into Arkansas that is headed towards the Memphis area as we get to around 6, 7 o'clock. There it is, right around Cross County, St. Francis County into Tunica County. Continues to move towards the northeast, and it does die out pretty quickly. Once we lose the heat of the day, I say heat, it's barely warmed up today, but we've had some of that sunlight going down in the evening. That's going to cut off its energy source, and it's going to really fall apart probably. We may still have some thunderstorms or at least some pop-up showers to our north around the midnight time frame. Some of those may still be on the stronger side. We'll have to keep an eye on those overnight tonight. And then as we get into tomorrow morning, that line of storms has sort of stalled out along a weak boundary there. So that's going to continue to spark off more and more showers tomorrow afternoon, at least on this model. Then notice by tomorrow afternoon, we've got some strong storms coming out of northern Arkansas. This is where we're looking at the main threat for severe tomorrow, though it could continue to push towards our direction as we get into the evening and especially into the overnight. Some of the assembly of those thunderstorms is going to sort of push into our area through the overnight time frame, and that could bring this next line of thunderstorms. This is the extent of this particular model. It doesn't go any farther than this, but tomorrow evening, we've got a line of thunderstorms there across the Little Rock area up towards Clinton, Arkansas. That could eventually make it to our area as we go through the overnight time frame. So I want to take you through the Storm Prediction Center outlook the next couple of days here. Of course, today we're kind of in between two areas of marginal, but we have had that one severe thunderstorm just pop up. As we go into tomorrow, there's that yellow shade, the level 2 slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center. It does encroach into our area, though not quite into the metro. It is still into parts of our viewing area tomorrow evening into the overnight. Then as we get into Wednesday, it will be around our area. So probably some of those storms coming in overnight, eventually arrive early in the morning. The cutoff for the timings of these outlooks is technically 7 a.m. So all the way through daybreak and then into Wednesday late morning, we could still see some of those thunderstorms around the area. So I'm going to send things back over to Trevor Burchett one last time, and we'll probably wrap up our coverage here around the area. Trevor.
Yeah, Kit, I think you're right. I think we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here pretty soon. I did just want to give kind of one more radar overview, and I appreciate you going through kind of the forecast of what we expect for the next several hours. It's going to be a pretty active next few days with chances for rain and maybe even some more thunderstorms. Starting to get some indications that this guy might be starting to weaken just a little bit. Still a strong thunderstorm now that's going to come into Hardeman County, northern Tippah County, Clip, Alcorn, and then even into McNairy County. So that's where that storm is going, eventually towards Selmer. And again, the main concern with that is just some gusty wind. We don't have a tornado potential, anything like that, but it is a heavy thunderstorm that's going to continue to move off to the north and east. So Selmer, Corinth, Benton County, Tippah County, those areas, Walnut, Middleton, that storm is impacting you. Some rain near Oxford, that's going to clear up soon as that batch moves out. And most of us are going to be dry for this evening. Again, there's this one cell that we're going to watch. It is really showing some signs of intensification. High wind gusts with that, possibly a little bit of hail and heavy rain. Now, that's a small cell. You know, this morning we've been dealing with these hours and hours and hours of rain. This next little cell that comes through, I don't think it's going to last hours, but it could pack a punch as it does. So Marietta, Helena, West Helena, Tunica, DeSoto County, and Memphis. Over the next 3 hours or so, that's where this storm is going to be headed. And again, like Kit mentioned, by 7:30, the sun starts to set and then that storm will fall apart. But for the next 3.5 hours, what I think we're really going to watch is that cell that could produce some gusty wind or some hail. Overnight tonight, mainly just some lighter off and on showers, maybe a rumble of thunder or two. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And then we'll do it all again tomorrow with some more storms to the north. And even on Wednesday, the potential will be there for some more thunderstorms. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this very closely for the next few hours, especially that cell back in Arkansas that's going to be moving in toward Memphis by about 7 o'clock or so. Our next newscast starts at 5 p.m. You can watch that on TV and, of course, right here on ABC24 Plus. But for now, for meteorologist Kit Thomas, I'm meteorologist Trevor Burchett. We'll see you back here.